Lights, camera, existential provocation. Today, we are doing a staged play, a tragedy. Allow me to set the stage. You always knew you were different, huh, Robert? And not just because you tried to poison your teacher in the first scene of the movie and real life, setting a fairly purposeful and powerful precedent. Hey, quick show of hands, how many of you poisoned teachers? Yeah. Okay, let's place a pin in that one then. This movie sure did. Oppenheimer illustrates a sociopathy openly and immediately. There are only moral absolutes that apply to everyone else. The title of today's play is called We Need to Talk About Robert. Oh, did you think you were getting every other Oppenheimer take on the internet? A Nolan movie that captured my life during our move across the desert. Crappy motel? Oppenheimer. Reward for uploading a video? Oppenheimer. Finished another pack of gummy bears? Oppenheimer. I am quite obsessed. What if you solved the one scientific frontier that no one else could? I bet the momentum of achieving that would make you cut some pretty serious corners, wouldn't you say? Lap some moral judgments in pursuit of a goalpost that keeps moving. But oh well, I'm sure it's fine. This face, we all end up here eventually.
Why did you say that name?
It's his mother's name.
Oh, I'm the villain. Oh shit.
Good.
Oh, beans. Oh, beans, I did it again. Oh,
Oops.
crap.
Aw, shoot.
I became what I always feared.
Can I let my parents down? Whoops.
Oppenheimer, a film ostensibly about the folly of being Julius Robert Oppenheimer, history's saddest sad boy genius. It's a visceral glimpse at an impossible mission accomplished where not everyone is attempting to accomplish the same goal. To quote Matt Damon in Rounders, for absolutely no reason.
If you can't spot the sucker in your first half hour at the table, then you are the sucker.
Should have seen that one coming. Christopher Nolan wrote and directed this film, adapting it from the novel American Prometheus, an important lens to witness our cautionary tale through. The theme of this movie is, are you ready? Don't fuck with Zeus. Video essays, yeah, we can do this. Yeah, thank you. Like the weight of the artistry and its message took something from me that could only be filled by watching this film repeatedly for somewhere around 2 weeks straight. Who are you, Julius Robert Oppenheimer? A secret you never fully reveal to anyone. There's a whole second movie layered beneath the surface of the Gee Whiz Bomb movie first one, which is equally astounding, the quintessential IMAX movie, but the second movie paints a picture of a man painting his own picture. What did Westerns look like in the cinema when he was building Los Emma? Oh, okay, so real life imitated art, and then art echoed that echo. Yo, this shit is subatomic, man, like whoa. In a strange and ultimately extremely important decision, Nolan wrote Oppenheimer's scenes in the first person, from the view of the man painting the picture. Our vantage point, our unreliable narrator, you see glimpses that Robert wants you to see. You figure out the hardest thing any human has gotten credit for up to this point, but you never figured out how to live a life that brought you any internal emotional satisfaction. And the black and white footage provides an anchor of sorts. These scenes that aren't just Robert's perception or invented perception of events. When you don't live in the world that Robert controls. I know this sounds sinister, but it is an extremely effective way to witness the genius that needs to puff the chest out. Because good luck standing toe-to-toe with the US military without puffing your chest out a little. Think about this movie for a second. The existence of unions to protect scientists risking their life every single day for the perceived safety of their home country. This movie is gonna slam so many incongruent ideas at you in a fission of grotesquely tangled manner. Who are you, Robert Oppenheimer? Minus a pretty naked pursuit of power, there isn't much of an ideology visible there at all. and he builds the biggest bomb the world has ever seen and ushers in a new age of warfare. Oh, do you have internal struggles about your own ideologies because you sorta don't have any? Robert Oppenheimer borrowed or outright stole culture he lifted.
I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
You ain't Vishnu, dog. You, the audience, must pay attention to the things that Robert is not. You hand out one union flyer and then all of a sudden the US government removes your access. Wait, hang the fuck on. Is Robert the bad guy in this book? Oh. You are the judge, but the testimony is something you're gonna have to read between the lines on a little. There's a second story nestled under the surface of the first one. Oppenheimer ending explained. Here's an easy way to look at it. He ended the world in his eyes and in his mind. That's what he did. Robert Oppenheimer is the destroyer of worlds because you are so damn busy making them up all the time. This movie does not paint a sympathetic picture of Oppenheimer. He's poison to his friends and the world.
I know this cause he poisoned a guy.
He moved the Earth and all he cared about was ruling his own tiny one. Considering its subatomic scope, it's a remarkably simple film. A man writes his own legend and is terrified when it is used against him. If you're the dude telling everyone else that life isn't fair and this is the only way to accomplish a goal, don't be shocked
When you suddenly realize you're Julius Caesar and you're standing on a rug.
Sure, they apologized eventually. We are all subjective ants, toiling away to be misinterpreted by those around us. This film is avant-garde, an experimental art explosion, because once again, you have a filmmaker trying to advance, and at this point, do low-key CPR on, the art and business of cinema. And what an astounding accomplishment this film is, which I believe is important because it is unapologetically about something. This film is Oppenheimer's perspective realization of a future he'll never see, but you will. Cinema should shake us at our core when we mayhaps need a shaking at our core. We're all kind of teetering on the edge right now, and that's why I'm happy to announce this world was built using Squarespace. I'm sorry. I gotta try and at least make this funny somehow. Let's do it. Get all of our bummers out in one episode. Want further life lessons you can take from this great big bomb movie? If you ruin everyone around you, you are left standing alone. His dread is our dread. Well, I guess we'd have to do some analysis on this movie, illustrate things about humanity in a tasteful and artful fashion. Inject some love into a lifeless terror vacuum. Sounds like a real megaton Mikey is materializing here, almost like this film is relevant to our literal current reality. Screaming alone in the darkness to an audience of one watching the film in 40xRI cinema on a Twitch stream. Okay, let's do the happy part first.
I'm a great admirer of your work.
True fact, you can point to any artisan path on this film and life-changing career standout work awaits you in every single direction. Maybe we should measure directors and Michelin stars given how effective they are at producing the product. I'm going to tackle Act 2 on our 4-act God fight, because 4 acts give you an exact middle point, a symmetrical film. A film that explodes from the inside out, like literally. Almost like pressure on the literal middle of the film explodes outwards across space and time, and plot like it's all connected. This section is all about the technical home runs in this film, top to bottom. This is the artistic achievement of the year, a tasteful and artful expression worth analyzing. Boom! Because Oppenheimer is a film where everyone understood the bar and goal, where it was going, and the questions it wanted to put in your head. Part 3 and 4 are going to go hard into the existential realm, but part 2 is going to stay just in the artistic expression itself. Curveball. Movies are a team sport. Working on a Nolan film, I imagine, comes with it a long shadow. You are not showing up to the set of an Adam Sandler movie, it's a high bar. So here's the few stories that illustrate why filmmaking is an art form that is entirely constrained by capitalism. And I'm not really even going to talk about Chris Nolan in this section. I want to highlight some heroes. So get your "but did you know" hats on.
And Chris is like, "This'll work." And I was like, "This is crazy."
Okay, for starters, a production designer is in charge of the entire art department on a film. If it's visually on screen, scouting, sets, special effects, that's all under your, well, I hate to make the metaphor that you're the sheriff of a tiny boomtown considering its use in the movie, but it's pretty accurate. You plan everything and then you prepare for everything to go wrong anyway.
The Oval Office, Chris and I had pre-selected about 7 days from when we were to shoot this. So this would be a location with just a complete dress and transformation. I get a call from locations. We lost this location. Probably have to build this. There's no other option for an Oval Office in LA. Surely we can put it at the end of our shooting schedule a few weeks from now. Emma let us know that our actor was locked and there was no chance of moving his date. And so Chris just looked at me and said, "You have to build this," and walked away. And I remember standing there going, I have no idea if this is humanly possible.
Real-world example. The ostensible climax of this film, a meeting between Oppenheimer and Truman in the Oval Office, became instantaneously one of my favorite filmmaking stories ever.
But did you know?
Ruth DeYoung, the production designer for Yellowstone, Us, and Nope, got on the Tofno train for the whirlwind 57-day shoot in multiple states with set demands that were absolute. But I'll start with the punchline.
In 7 days, we couldn't erect an Oval Office this scale, even if with 24 hours a day running a crew. Early on in prep, we had researched standing sets that might have been flat packed. Samantha Englander, my supervising art director, she had put on hold. I don't know if it was just a spidey sense or what. I think it was the Veep set.
When the goalpost is moving, you adapt. This is probably too inside baseball to the point it is just baseball, but I enjoy filmmaking as a sport. There's so many factors to success and nobody is really sure how to create the alchemy to win in perpetuity. Hey, blow the whistle. The production designer is the coach of the art team. I'll stop cross-threading too many metaphors now. There is an entire wonderful interview with Ruth on Vanity Fair linked below, building Oppenheimer's sets to be fully circular views. They obviously planned a lot of shots, and lucky for Ruth, she worked with DP Hoyda before, but these sets were built to allow for emotional and improvisational work to be done on top of what was planned. Shooting on IMAX cameras, which should tell you the scope creep of just doing shit on the fly, it is super worth understanding and appreciating the mountains that are being moved on Chris Nolan movies. This team is eclectic and brilliant and creative. It's artists all the way down in the truest sense of the word. They knew they didn't have access to an Oval Office set, and Chris is just like, well, build it, Ruth. Just, you know. Oh, also, we're shooting in a week. Bye! So Ruth finds a flat-packed set from Veep, reconstructs it, redecorates it, makes it so you would never possibly even know that that is literally the set from Veep. And production design stories are 100% like that. And oddly, Veep and Oppenheimer do have the same theme. Don't fuck with Zeus. I think that's actually a pretty good segue into the film score.
Algebra's like sheet music. The important thing isn't can you read music, it's can you hear it. Can you hear the music, Robert?
Where you at, Ludwig? Ludwig Göransson is a legend. There's not a lot of other words that I believe apply here. I mean, being named after Beethoven casts a pretty long shadow. I'm sensing a theme in part 2. For starters, Ludwig's work in Oppenheimer, pulsating, ponderous, atonal, but fiercely instrumental. The violins dance in Robert's head because Robert can hear the music. Can you feel the art in science, Robert? Science is just finding things out that we don't yet know for sure. Oh shit, but what if we didn't want to know? Guess that's just people though. There's gravity to this work because there is gravity to this story. It is huge in scope. It has to sell that none of these characters are quite sure the world won't end. A fear that does not go away. The music must be explorational. This is my favorite film score in years, probably a decade. And while we're here... But did you know? Yeah, he was the dude that put together Redbone, the greatest jam of all time. But that's what is beautiful about all the art created for this movie. It is in service of landing emotions that are already there. Here's a fun exercise on the versatility and viability of art. Throw on the news, mute it, and in the background, play the Oppenheimer soundtrack over it. Tell me in the comments how far you get in the hashtag Oppie challenge. I made it 2 minutes, but there were a lot of bombs. Art is perspective. In turn, interpretation of art is perspective. It all comes down to viewpoints. And on the subject of viewpoints, I can't think of anyone I want to talk about other than Hoyte van Hoytema, the king of bespoke craftsmanship. The regularity with which I'm talking about Hoyte lately is awesome. Let's just hit you with the sickest but did you know ever. Hoyte van Hoytema was the cinematographer on Let the Right One In. It is Interstellar where Hoyte enters the Nolanverse as a pretty consistent collaborator from that point on. Tenet is a huge accomplishment, almost entirely in the photographic sense. Hoyte solves extremely big problems in interesting and extremely practical ways. So let's focus on his contributions inside of Oppenheimer, a movie he had to help design the look of and fabricate a custom lens. No big, I got lenses for days. And this lens would be specifically great at compressing depth of field into extremely narrow distances in a large format image standard. And if you want to sum up this movie in one word, it is faces. Hoyte drove the photography of this movie with faces and their accompanying performances. The folly of man on full display. Oh shit, it was me. And here's the wild genius of this whole concept. They invented new tech to combat against lens distortion in the hyper close-ups with lenses made for medium takes. This is weaponized against the audience when the one thing Robert cannot do any longer is focus on faces. Prometheus, a titan, stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. He was also tortured by Zeus forever because he did this, and a bird eats his liver, also forever. Yeah. Look, the metaphor checks out. American Prometheus, a story told upon the faces of regret. Not a lot of people in this come out on top that aren't Colonel Graves.
Fortune favors the brave.
Shut up, Matt. There's no way not to read this movie subjectively because your viewpoints on this type of warfare are kind of central to how you feel about this film. Almost like it's purely Oh, is that part 3? Is that part 3? Here we go. Let's have a big old talk about subjectivity. We are not operating from the point of view of objective fact, We're coasting on feelings, y'all. A thing Chris Nolan has always celebrated in his films, ways to interpret them. But here, you can read this movie any way you want or feel like. He wrote most of the screenplay from the first person. Oppenheimer's character emotions literally crafted the cinematic world we are inside of. And to bury the lead in a shallow grave, all art is subjective on some level. But this film literally exists in the mind of a man. A really shitty man a lot of times. All times. Did I mention we were talking about subjectivity? We are unbounded by anything but emotion. Vibes, man. Real talk, we live in a time where science is not accepted as an objective truth. But were we ever really listening to what science tried to tell us? Do we narrow our worldview to accomplish what we believe to be moral objectives? Then again, from person to person, moral objectives are liquid. Artful point inbound. Wouldn't it be interesting to make a movie about a guy who only sees in one direction, that doesn't have much of a viewpoint, concerned about much of anyone around him? A point pretty easy to extrapolate into literally the whole of humanity. Robert didn't save anybody. Like, this movie rubs your face in the alarms you kind of have to ignore, and Robert imagines all kinds of things.
There was carbohydrate in her blood.
However you gotta justify it to yourself, the world is never the same after this. That should give people pause, if perhaps to consider the subject of one's own views on a world that no one wanted. This movie doesn't spend a lot of time attempting to portray things through the eyes of anything but people experiencing it, faces and the whatnot, which, again, is all in the design of the film working in harmony. Our personal take at any time will vary based on our analysis of how any person is reacting at any time. It's kind of like a crime scene. It gets worse the more you watch it. This is a movie where you're driving home like, oh shit, wait a minute. Like, this is simply a world we don't have to cheer on to escalate further violence. That is a subjective take you can have on your own. You couldn't make an objective movie about Julius Robert Oppenheimer that was in any way interesting. It feels the subject matter is too massive to just leave on the table without emotional reflection and turmoil. These men toiled away for years. They built a bomb and treated their spouses poorly. And the bomb was taken from them, stolen, honestly, and then dropped. Actually, even as a purely fact-based viewpoint, the military openly making it clear that designing destructive weaponry does not make you party for how it's used. Senpai doesn't notice you forever. Almost like fear takes root in the American psyche right here. I, Michael Newman, was born in 1982 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm a Cold War baby. No aspect of my life was not colored by the world that Robert helped to usher in. We used to do nuclear drills in elementary school. We all took different things from this movie, but within myself, it awoke deep nestled darkness from the depths of my own childhood. Like, I had an understanding of what a nuclear bomb was before I was in 4th grade. For, some subjective looks at a subjective movie. Wow, almost like it has done everything it can to push back against the Oppenheimer ending explains of the world before they even happen. And a lot of good that did. Understanding this movie is openly questioning your comfort with the way the world currently is, and has been for some time. You want a movie explained? Actually litigate the things it makes you feel and why. Pray tell, they may have made you feel that. Some movies are too big to be explained, too existentially massive to really come to terms with. Perhaps it is how the art reflects off of you that truly creates meaning within one's own life.
elements boil off, which could be used to split other uranium atoms.
Chain reaction.
The god of fire, Prometheus, thought he was one of you, so you burned him. Quite a powerful metaphor when you break it down, honestly. The reality of power and allowing people their delusions of power. It's a real glass onion type situation. A chain reaction, a multiplicative effect, a number of events triggered by a single event. On the surface level, you can see that in every character, none more than Robert. The single human that causes a shockwave through the people around him. Oh dude, it's you, bud. But it's also kind of a danger to be in pursuit of being the golden god that could. You know, that gets chained to the rock and tortured and humiliated and celebrated in a monkey's paw kind of way. A literal god to humanity. Thanks for the fire. Okay, hypothetical time. Another god chains you to a rock for all of eternity. You're kinda not a god, low-key, right? A chain reaction. Oh shit, I did this. A series of events so abstractly connected that you have to reorganize them to force chaos into order. Can you hear the music, Robert? A series of impossible events bridging from a single one. Maybe the guy who poisons the apple shouldn't be the guy building the bomb. On a sort of hilarious level, writing this piece, metaphors generally run up against limits when you're, playing around with them. Like, here's a fun thought experiment. Who is Hercules in the Prometheus metaphor? I'll give you a second. Hi, hello, the answer is Albert Einstein because it is Hercules that frees Prometheus from the rock. This metaphor goes on for days. But it's never the same again, is it, Robert? You cannot go back to the way things were. So, having avoided the Barbie/Oppenheimer comparison for 2 videos now, I will go ahead and tackle that here at the end of this one. From a very cynical YouTube perspective. They're the same movie. Once you learn what you cannot unlearn, it will never be the same for you. You come at Zeus, you best not miss.
What have we done? What have we created? It was never supposed to be like this. Oppenheimer might be subjective, but the objectively better cut of this episode is over on Nebula. Being on YouTube can sometimes force us to compromise the art we want to make with copyright claims, monetization, and the algorithm. But on Nebula, we don't have to worry about any of those things. And on the subject of things we've always wanted to talk about, I've been thinking about this episode for a long time, the 100-year entire history of the film studio MGM, and the place to see it is on Nebula. Nebula is a platform created by and for creators to create the art that we've always wanted to. Nebula is home to exclusives like Lindsay Ellis's The Ballad of John and Yoko. It's a beautiful celebration of who the Beatles actually were and a wonderful examination of who John and Yoko were specifically. It shows nuance you don't often see in video essays, and I learned a lot from it. We're even helping creators produce their dream projects like Jesse Gender's Identities coming this summer. It's about a pair of newly hired individuals in a corporate metaverse that rigidly defines every single aspect of their employees' reality. Nebula is uniquely positioned to provide all creators on the platform opportunities we wouldn't otherwise find. And none of this would be possible without our fans who support us and other creators like us. So if you want to join a platform that is pushing entertainment forward and make things we never would have been able to before, come support Filmjoy and Nebula and get access to our videos a month before they hit YouTube. You can visit go.nebula.tv/filmjoy to get a whole year of Nebula for only $30. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. I can't stop thinking about MGM. There's so much to say. I need more time.